Hello. I'm glad to be back and have an opportunity to discuss a couple of issues that we've talked about and I've promised that we were going to talk about but haven't gotten to yet. And that's the concept of guilty, not guilty, and innocent. And I think it's important, as I've thought about how to go about dealing with these issues, I think it's important for us to start at the very beginning of a case. Because what we're talking about with guilty, not guilty is our criminal cases, and it's important to kind of understand how a criminal case happens and who's involved in the case. And what's important, I believe, that most people don't really understand is that a criminal case is something that's prosecuted by the government. In Indiana, it's called State of Indiana versus the person accused of the crime. So even if you are a victim of a crime, and even if you are going to be the witness, the key witness at a case, you really aren't anything more than a witness. Just like the police officers, just like forensics people, just like people who saw what happened. You are a witness. The government itself brings the case on behalf of all of the people, not on behalf of the person that alleges they are a victim of a crime. And that's an important thing to understand for this reason. The government has a duty to bring the case, and it's the government's burden to prove an individual's guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. And that's an important thing to grasp. The government is who is bringing these cases. The government has the duty to produce evidence that provides a jury the ability to determine whether someone's guilty beyond all reasonable doubt. So we've got this concept of the government and guilt beyond all reasonable doubt. And then the most important concept to remember and understand is the concept of presumption of innocence. Everyone is presumed to be innocent. Every individual accused of a crime begins with the presumption of innocence, and that person has to do nothing to prove their innocence. So our Constitution, our forefathers believed that it was important for us to have a system where when the government accused a person of being a criminal, committing a crime, that person should be presumed to be innocent. They would have to do nothing to prove their innocence, but the government would have the burden to prove all elements of the crime beyond all reasonable doubt. Now, that sounds really great in theory. But the problem you run into is a problem that I think that when we're all willing to be candid with ourselves, it's a problem we all have about the idea of when someone is accused of a crime by the government, we are usually inclined to not be able to look at an accused and say in our heart of hearts, there is an innocent person, that they are innocent. Every time I look at them until that case is over, until a jury returns a verdict, I must be able to look at them and say, in my heart of hearts, there sits an innocent man or there sits an innocent woman. That's the burden that we personally have as potential jurors and just as folks sitting around out there seeing the system operate around us. And that becomes a problem in the sense that you have to be able to find jurors who will be able to sit in judgment, who will hold the government to the burden of proof beyond a reasonable doubt, and at the whole time be able to sit there and look at an accused and say, well, there is an innocent person. The government's duty is to prove beyond a reasonable doubt, and they have to do nothing. And when we pick juries, that becomes our burden, our albatross, so to speak, is finding folks who can do that. So a couple of ways I want to kind of give you thought, things to think about, to kind of get a feeling for what I'm saying is this. Think about if you have children, when you get a letter or you've gotten a letter from the school and the teacher has said, little Johnny is in trouble. I'm suspending him for 3 days from school because he pulled Penny's pigtails and she sits in front of him in class. Well, I mean, that's the authority, the teacher. That's like the government. And the government has said, little Johnny did something wrong and I'm going to punish Johnny. And here's the punishment. Now, when it's someone we love or ourselves or our children, we're probably more inclined to say, well, now wait a minute, teacher. How do you know Johnny did that? Prove to me, explain to me, make me understand why Johnny is guilty of what you've said Johnny did. Show me the video. Don't have a video. Well, who were the witnesses? Well, Billy was a witness and Billy was over on the swing sets. Well, let me hear Billy's statement. Show me why you believe my loved one is guilty. Prove to me beyond all reasonable doubt that my loved one is guilty, because I am going to look at them and presume they're innocent because I love Johnny. He's mine. I know he's good. Or if it's you accused, you know you're not guilty. So the government's pointing their finger and making allegations alone shouldn't be enough to take my freedom, to cause my life to change dramatically and potentially lose my job and my family. So we want people to be able to look in their heart and go, wow, I want everyone to presume me innocent if I'm ever accused of something. And I would have presumed my children and my loved ones to be innocent if they're accused of something. And I am going to make the government meet their burden to prove beyond all reasonable doubt the things that they are accusing this person that isn't my child, isn't me, isn't my loved one, but that's the way I need to learn to approach judging in this legal system we live in others. So think about how you approach an accusation that your child did something wrong, just a mere accusation, and do you approach it with, well, yeah, you probably did that, and I'm going to punish him, and that's fine, you punished him, or hey, prove it to me, or someone you love, or think about how you would want to be treated if you were accused of something that you didn't do, and what you would want the presumption to be in the heart of hearts of the people that judge you. It's tough, it's difficult, and I understand. The other thing I want you to do that kind of give you the mindset of how we're going to move forward, and I want you to reach back and think about and feel as we talk about guilty, not guilty, and innocent, is tonight watch the news. And in Kentucky, if you're where we are, you're going to see some news where some person has been accused of a crime, and you're going to get to see him walk up in front of the judge in an orange jumpsuit with handcuffs and leg bracelets on, and stand next to a lawyer and have the Commonwealth attorney stand up, and you're going to hear the story about what this person did. Just think about how you feel when you see that. And think about whether or not you truly are watching this on television, watching this accused person, and you're thinking, there stands an innocent man, there stands an innocent woman. Or are you thinking, well, what they did was horrible, and they must have done it because they got arrested, and they must have done it because they're in front of the judge and they've been accused by the government, so, well, this person must have done it. And we can't have that as our basic beliefs in our system. We must try to mold ourselves to be able to say, well, there's an accused person. They've been accused, but until there's proof beyond a reasonable doubt that what they've been accused of, they did, I am going to see them as an innocent man or an innocent woman. That is the challenge. Those are two ways that I think that you can kind of put yourself in a place where you can better appreciate the importance of presumption of innocence. How do I feel if one of mine are accused? How do I feel if I'm accused or a loved one is accused? And what would I expect the government to have to do to take my child, my loved one, or my freedom from me and stigmatize me for life by making me a criminal? What would I expect if it were me that I would want the burden to be? And then can I do those same things when I am in a place to be a judge of another person? That's what a jury does. And then always keep in mind, we see the flashes on the news of a verdict, and I'm old enough to tell you that I remember the backlash in the O.J. Simpson case, and there's been backlash in other cases where people have just been outraged that a jury has found someone not guilty or that a jury's found someone guilty. You got to remember this. Juries sit there day in, day out, hear evidence, hear the government, hear the defense, and they, the juries, have the whole picture. And they make a decision based on a whole picture, not just on the nightly news and the 2-minute report and somebody's opinion about what happened in court. So that's another thing for you to kind of hold here and think about as we move through this process. So that's what I want to talk about today. This idea, charges are filed, the government is who brings the case, the burden is against, the government has the burden, and they must prove beyond all reasonable doubt that a person committed the crimes they're accused of. A person has to do nothing to prove their innocence, and jurors and all of us must look at every accused person and in our heart be able to say, there sits an innocent man or there sits an innocent woman, until a group of 6 or 12 people hear the whole case and they make a decision, not guilty, guilty, hung jury. We'll talk about that. And remember, innocence has nothing to do with this discussion. And I'll explain that probably at the end. So thank you very much. It's been an opportunity I've enjoyed. Hopefully I will be able to get this next information out there to you a little sooner than this last. But there's been a lot going on in the world, and I felt like we needed to wait and take a breath before we started talking about things like this again. So my name is Larry Wilder. I'm a lawyer, and on YouTube I'm Larry the Law Guy. Thank you for watching. Make comments, send me information, messages, whatever. Good or bad, I'm a defense lawyer. I've heard it all. Thank you.